Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name's Mary Tavija, and I'm with the Consortium for Educational Change, and I'd like to welcome you all to our webinar today, Creating Equity in Education Through Social-Emotional Learning. Before we begin this afternoon, I'd like to share a few bits of information with you. First, this webinar is sponsored by the Literacy Organizational Capacity Initiative at NORC, the nonpartisan and objective research organization at the University of Chicago. The director of LOCI, Kaylani Dunsmore, is unable to join us in person today, but she sends her greetings to all of you and reminds you that you may find out more information about LOCI at their website, literacycapacity.org. LOCI has worked in collaboration with the Consortium for Educational Change to present today's session. We will be recording this and we'll post a recording of this webinar on our website, cecweb.org. Before we begin, please remember to tell us who you are by entering your name, role, and location in the chat box. You can find that down at the bottom of your screen. Click on chat box, it will open up and you can type in any of your comments or questions as we go through today's webinar. Our presenter today is Dr. Joshua Cole. Dr. Cole is the principal at Ecoff Elementary School in Chester, Virginia, part of the Chesterfield County Public Schools. He began his teaching career in Detroit Public Schools and received the Milken National Educator Award for Educational Excellence. Joshua founded a new angle to help educators create equity in education with a new approach to leveraging school success. He's written a children's book titled The Character Club, It's Time to Power Up, that is focused on social-emotional learning skills. It's been my pleasure to visit Ecoff Elementary School, where Dr. Cole is principal, and I've seen firsthand how their focus on social-emotional learning has created an engaging learning environment that embraces all students and their families, all faculty and staff. And I know you'll enjoy hearing more about their journey today. So Joshua, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the introduction, Mary, and this collaboration with the Consortium for Educational Change. And welcome everyone to our webinar this afternoon. I am going to go ahead and just get started by letting you know that you can connect with me through Twitter. My personal email or my personal Twitter handle is there, and our school handle. So if you want to learn more about what we do at Ecoff Elementary or components of A New Angle, you can follow myself and our school on Twitter. So I'm going to take you through a practical journey here today about social-emotional learning having an impact on creating equity in education through Ecoff Elementary School. Firsthand experience as a principal and just as a person. And so as quickly as I can through technology here, I want to build a relationship with everyone. And thank you again, Mary, for taking care of the chat box. So if anybody has any questions as we move along, feel free to put those questions in the chat box and we can make this as interactive as we possibly can. So at Ecoff, as you can see, our symbol is a dream catcher. Tribe Pride is our logo. And just initially off the bat there, I want to say that we've worked hard in terms of culturally relevant pedagogy and embracing the culture within our school community. Our symbol alone, we used to be called the Indians, and to be conscientious of terminology being used, we're now the tribe and we use a dream catcher. So that's just one tiny piece of how we're building equity through social emotional learning through discussions and conversations where it's an entire school community approach. But before we get too much into that, just a little bit about me. That young man there on your screen to the left is me, my first day of kindergarten. My mom took that picture and I was excited. I'm still excited today. On the right, there's pictures of all these principals. And now I'm a principal. And so I've been through quite a journey, as Mary mentioned, a teacher in Detroit, moving to Virginia, getting my PhD, studying school desegregation, and working very hard on developing cultural competency and equity measures within our school district. Specifically at our school with social emotional learning, I've been able to do my best to transform our school and really transform the role of the principal from what we all see, because I'm still that little boy there on the left trying to make a difference. And so I hope some of the information I share today can help you make a difference in your worlds as well. So I'm not Superman. I thought I was at one point when I was 4. This is a school event, but I do enjoy superheroes. And Mary mentioned the book that I've written. I'm going to get to that in terms of social emotional learning and character development. So my organization, A New Angle, feel free to explore that on the my website there, joshuapcole.com. The whole initiative of A New Angle is to create equity in education. And I've been fortunate enough to have experience as a principal to bring some of my individual work into the school and what we do at our school into my individual work to make it as one. Number 1, creating equity in education. And then number 2, collaborating with folks like you in the educational arena to make it a reality. And they always say have 3 steps for what you want to accomplish. So I'm going to send you right back to number 2. And today, for us to collaborate through this opportunity, I'm very thankful for that again. So I think Mary's asked for everyone to put their name into the chat box and just say where you're from. So I'm going to start with this cartoon. Maybe you've seen it, maybe you haven't, but just to describe it to you a little bit, this gentleman's on the right speaking to a lineup of different animals. And he says, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So I'm curious of any perspectives on this visual here to get us started before I delve into some of the specifics. And if anybody does chime in eventually, Mary, just let me know. But I can tell you that by looking at the cartoon alone, I know it's conjured up a lot of emotion in educators, parents, and students about what's expected in our realm of education at this point in time, especially when it comes to testing, expectations along academic rigor. And I like to take a step back from that and look at relationships and how we can develop relevance with our pedagogy to then get the rigor to make for everyone to meet these objectives that are set forth. And not everyone is equipped with the tools necessary, the skill sets, as these animals are portrayed here, our kids and families and other dynamics that can affect one's ability or circumstances, as I mentioned.
And we've had a few comments here, Joshua, with people who are saying that we should be judging people by their strengths, and rather than trying to get students to do the same thing in the same way and measuring them that way.
That's absolutely right. Thanks for those who have chimed in. I appreciate that. Absolutely. Looking at strengths versus the deficiencies. It's a unfortunate circumstance that we're in as educators that can create a negative perception of kids, a pity mindset, approach that isn't always positive. So through social emotional learning, there is a true opportunity to develop that equity. And if anybody else chimes in, Mary, thanks for jumping in there. But I'm going to give you a few more visuals to help us walk through this process of creating equity. This visual may have you've seen out there. The boxes below, in terms of how we give resources out when it comes to equality, has been the nature of education for years. I would argue even before the civil rights movement in terms of creating equal rights. That's the way that everybody gets the same thing. But when you think about equity, we need to be fair in the distribution of resources and supports for everybody to be able to, as this visual shows, to see the game and be participants and level that playing field, if you will. So those boxes that the children are underneath there, especially the shortest one, that's social emotional learning, and the supports that we can give to kids to help get them have the skill sets necessary and equip their families as well is really the key to help leveling the playing field. Another visual here, sometimes there's issues of race that get to be the forefront of the conversation, but this visual, can focus on race, it can focus on age, it can focus on disability. whatever arena you want to look at, this visual also shows the differences that exist, gender as well. We need to take a very intentional approach to the process, and ECOFF's purpose has been just that.
Joshua, I just want to mention that we've had a couple of people who mentioned that they too have used these slides in trainings that they've done with people. And we've had one teacher who says that she uses these in class with her students and has had some wonderful conversations with students around those.
Excellent. Well, we've done the same at our school. These visuals are up at our school along with many other things. And that is extremely important. And let me just take a minute. I didn't mean to gloss over too much of my organization, but when I say a new angle, the N stands for naming our diversity. We need to talk about our diversity. And E is empowering open-mindedness, and W, welcoming out-of-the-box ideas. So with those statements that are being shared, I love that people are already doing that. That's something we need to encourage our kids to do more so we can talk about those differences with our kids. That's when the true change does take place. This visual, it takes quite a few different circles of influence. Our practice, the leadership. If there's any principals in the chat room today, I'm right with you in terms of being a principal of elementary school, and then the culture that's created. All key components to the rigor, relevance, and relationships, and those expectations that are within a school to create that equity. And those expectations can fall right under social emotional learning's framework. Summer slides, we've heard about that often. At ECOFF, we had a reading pass rate of 64% just 3 years ago. We were struggling. And then we started to do more work with social emotional learning, being intentional with the disproportionality that existed amongst our demographics. In fact, I'm going to get to some of our demographics at the school. Here's another visual just to kind of set the framework for the difference between equality and equity. Plants, there's no judgment here with people on when you look at plants, but every plant needs a different amount of sunlight or rain. And if we all needed the basic things in life to survive, that would be one thing, but we all might need something different. And that's how we can truly thrive. So keeping that in mind, how we can flourish and help our kids flourish is really diversifying our supports. A little bit more about ECOFF and the challenges we were facing. I mentioned our reading levels were at a lower rate, just truth be told, in the 60% range. Also our suspensions. This has been a national crisis, if you will, in terms of the total of students who were suspended at our school, 58, and those of color being 39. It was not proportionate to our demographics, including students with disabilities, just 3 years ago. Here's our demographic, a peek at that, how diverse we are in terms of our racial diversity and socioeconomic diversity. We've just become a targeted Title I school this year, which has helped allow us more supports in terms of finances and resources to purchase personnel. But through the process of the past 3 years, we weren't receiving those Title I funds. So the work that we've done, I feel, is very important to share with others when you're in that predicament of limited resources when there's a maximum amount of needs. So going back to the 3 points, ECOFF's purpose, we were given the charge to institutionalize SEL at our school and then communicate with education leaders to make number one a reality at their other schools. We're the first school in Chesterfield County to become a social emotional learning school, and there's nearly 70 schools in our district. So that was quite an honor. We were thankful for that opportunity and working hard to train our entire staff to make this a reality has been part of our journey. So the SEL competencies, I want to make sure everybody understands what those 5 are. They're listed here. We're going to delve deeper into those. But I always get asked the question, what is SEL? How would you describe it? Give me a 1-sentence summary. It's hard to do so, but here's 5 different phrases that could help explain what it is. But it's really helping kids develop strategies to work through life. The skills to be able to communicate and interact with others in a positive way to solve your own problems is what's really helped our school be successful, not just with our behaviors, but with academics. And there's many pieces to that puzzle that I want to walk through, but I wanted to first let you know that the 5 components of self-management, self-awareness, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision making are the 5 competencies we really focus on with SEL. So our focus is SEL at Ecoff, and our process has been empowerment. And that word's going to come up quite a few times in this presentation, but I'm a big believer in empowerment and how we can give the skills not just to our kids and families, but to our teachers. Teachers are the key ingredient to this entire process in the school. The more we can empower our teachers and give them that autonomy to be who they truly are in terms of their own abilities as an educator is what's helped transform our school. So, ECOFF'S journey. I'm going to walk you through this process, digging deep, icebergs. We see a lot of the outcomes and actions. I've told you a little bit about that with our discipline issues, reading levels low, but we had to have some discourse. We had to talk about the assumptions and beliefs that are out there. But the problem was, when I first became principal, I was pushing the rigor and technology and blended learning, STEAM, PBL, SOLs, that's our state test, standards of learning. And I truly was getting pushback. We're in a system of education at this time when those things are measures that we need to put in place, of course, but we have to do it in a way that puts SEL first. So I took a step back over a 5-year span here. We're still in the process of building trust and using equity as a lens with data and decisions. When I say equity as a lens, helping all folks within our school community of 800 kids, their families and community partners all understand that we need to look through this equity lens to make our decisions, and addressing the assumptions and beliefs about students' potential. That word potential is extremely important. If we look at it again as a positive approach versus any kind of deficit, we're going to make positive change because we're expecting that. And then we also began with implementing positive behavior interventions and supports, PBIS. That's been out for several years, and what we did with that process is create our team expectations at Ecoff. We have our matrix. We were having kids team. T is treat everyone with respect. Everyone follows directions, accept responsibility, and make good choices. A baseline for behavior expectations. That was working, but we had to dig a little deeper. And in terms of administration going to problems when kids weren't following Ecoff expectations, we did that, and we do that. Kids getting sent to the office doesn't happen at our school. When problems arise, we go to the problem. Going back to the teacher as being the one in control and the power, we talk to the kids about whatever mistake they had made, give them a choice to go back in the classroom and ask for permission of their teacher and make sure they apologize so that they can have more time in the classroom to learn, and the teachers retain that sense of empowerment with their kids and authority, and we are that resource as administrators to support them. And the baseline for this whole understanding for kids to know how the process works is our daily morning meetings. Built into our schedule is a 20-minute block every day. We're a late school. We start at 9 a.m. And morning meetings start at 9:20. Kids come in, takes about 20 minutes for all the breakfasts to happen. But from 9:20 to 9:40 each day, our students are sitting in circles with their teachers, walking through lessons, discussing issues, strengthening their SEL competencies, and getting support from other kids to help them make better decisions moving forward. So those processes have been ongoing, but specifically I want to get a little personal here. As we all know, this is not a session on gun control by any means, but Sandy Hook happened in 2012. And that affected me just as it did everyone else in the educational field in our country. And so I really started to take a step back and look at what are we really doing in education, and specifically at our school, what could I control? And so the approach of different things in terms of reprioritizing the 3 R's happened for me. And relationships became first, and then we really started to dig more into the culturally relevant pedagogy, and then the rigor would eventually come. We knew that. We created our own PLC room. We were intentional with professional learning communities where we took those cards that teachers fill out for grouping and all the information that we helped design classrooms. Well, we went ahead and put those around a room in our school that wasn't used so that we could sit and focus on our students with their pictures and their needs and abilities and strengths, and design interventions more strategically in a proactive way, and make sure we are cross communicating with all of our support staffs within our school and our wraparound services. We also took, I took the time to change my office into a classroom. I realized as a former teacher, I needed to do my part. Took my office, rearranged it in a way that I could fit, 25 kids at a time in there and teach my own lessons to each classroom. At that time on bullying prevention and different topics. Now we get more into character education and some of the other social emotional learning competencies. I also taught two lessons to each class each year. Wanted the teachers to see me part of the process in the trenches with them, so to speak, so that it was a true team effort from the office through the school. We'd established professional goals to diversify our staff. Our staff of almost 100 people, we were 2% teachers of color. As of today, we're over 20%. We've been very intentional and proactive in working with human resources to make sure our staff is more of a reflection of our student population in terms of their racial and ethnic backgrounds. Held a lot of discussions on creating an inclusive school with our PTA, empowering our parents as well to make sure they had a voice in the process, diversifying our PTA so that they had a full understanding of what SEL was all about and this mission we had to create equity within our own school. We got on a bus. We went right through the community where our kids live. Some of our teachers had been working there for 15, 20 years, and they hadn't had a chance to really experience and see where their kids lived. So that's been an annual tradition now to take bus tours through our community and visiting and trying to find ways to connect at the local pool or wherever it may be so our kids see us as people and we're building those relationships. Of course, I showed you our Twitter account, and you can also follow us on Facebook. Great ways to reach out to your school community and to brand your school in a way that can help everybody understand the same message that you have moving forward. Social media can be a very powerful thing for that. So a couple years ago, getting more specific with SEL, our district, Chesterfield County Public Schools, developed a wellness task force and began exploring SEL and what that would look like. And as I mentioned, we were the first school to pilot the program. At our school, though, we were struggling without being a Title I school with a series of different needs. We conducted a needs assessment of our school supports and resources to stop and look at what we are doing and how we're doing it. And it helped us really reprioritize everything into one space called the Ecoff Empowerment Zone. I'm going to show you some pictures and talk with you more about that in just a minute. We also created the Character Club. I've mentioned a bit about character education. Mary referenced my book. Essentially what I did after the Sandy Hook experience, if you will, I read Paul Tuff's book, How Children Succeed. If you haven't read Paul Tuff's book, How Children Succeed, I recommend it. In the book, he talks about 7 character traits that are vastly important for our kids to develop, and also growth mindset. There's a lot of research out there about growth mindset and grit. And you'll find Angela Duckworth and Carol Dweck talking a lot about those topics. But I took the character traits and turned those character traits into superheroes. And a little bit later, I'll dig into what that means. But I wanted to find a way for optimism to be a little bit more attainable for kids to identify with. I wanted self-control to have a name and a face. Curiosity to mean something in terms of kids being able to feel confidence in who they were. So we developed the Character Club in our empowerment zone right here. It was an underutilized space within our school that was one day a week. We had art itinerant in the classroom. It was just storage. So we recreated the entire space to be really our community resource center for our parents, teachers, and kids. We also, the Character Club came to life. Here are the actual superhero kids. This was the original drawing. You can see gratitude, curiosity, social intelligence, self-control, optimism, grit, and zest all became superhero kids. There's also a little friend there named Query, the robot computer that comes to life in our school where kids can write we have a box. I'll show you that slide in a little bit. We have a computer box where kids can write letters to Query for support. But those are the basics we started with a couple years ago. And here's just a before and after photo of that room. Underutilized, just storage and junk. And since it's been transformed, where we have our community meetings, workshops with families, and all sorts of events for our kids. In fact, here's a few more talking points here. Can easily be modified to meet the needs of any group that wants to come in from we have 36 community partners. Our PTA literally has an office in this space. We want, our parents to feel empowered. Storage for many groups. We have a food bank we've created, a backpack program, a number of other resources, not just for hospitality, but for events that may take place. Then also technology, so people can come in and be fully equipped to present. And when I say people, we have our local mental health organization can come and do presentations, and they do. Our local YMCA runs an after-school program and holds presentations for the community there as well. It's a great space that we've utilized to help empower our entire community. A little more specific about the Character Club and what that's all about. It's really been a baseline for us to develop student leadership. We have Safe Patrols, Friendly Helpers, Student Ambassadors, and the SEL Council. Those are fifth graders that have to apply to be on the council. Instead of a student council, we have an SEL Council, a diverse representation of our student body where they have to apply and be selected. And they do a lot of work with our entire school. They actually go to the morning meetings that I mentioned on Fridays and go and speak to the younger students in the school about leadership, about goal setting, about being the best you can be and following our SEL expectations and what it means to be a leader at Ecoff. So for this type of expectation to be coming from students has been probably the most successful piece of our entire puzzle. I wish we would have started it even sooner, but it took a while to get there. But once we empower our kids to be leaders, kids will follow other kids very quickly. Our hallways at our school are named after the character traits. There's a slide later that shows street signs with our character traits. We've really created an entire school culture around character ed, social emotional learning to create that environment where people feel inspired just as even they walk through the hallways. I mentioned a little bit about the query box, and here he is. I rolled them into the empowerment zone for this photo. But kids can write letters to query when they don't feel comfortable going to their teachers or our counselor or myself or whomever for support from the Character Club. And query gives the letter of need to a superhero, and a superhero will write the students back with their empowering message of support. So kids are hearing these messages from superheroes, our fifth grade leaders really, or myself if the problem's too intense. But it's a safe way for our kids to share the needs that they're experiencing. And then we can be more strategic with our supports and interventions to give them those resources and supports they need to then become focused more so on learning, which is our priority, of course. And if there are any questions as we move along, I know, Mary, you can chime right in and share those with me. Yeah, here's a more updated picture of the Character Club, and they're the updated version in the book that I wrote. And what we found was we were telling stories about what the Character Club kids can do, that the stories took on a life of their own. And we've developed systems where kids set their own goals based on the character traits. They get stickers and badges and all sorts of fun things when they accomplish their goals. And no kid feels left out, because another very intentional piece of my work and the work we do at Ecoff is naming our diversity and embracing it more so. Just a few years ago, the research on diversity in children's books, as you see here, did not match the demographics of our kids. So I wanted to do something about that and make a difference, not just with the literature we're reading at our school, but for others to have and use as resources. So I donated a copy of the Character Club to each of our schools in our district and all of our classrooms. So we use that resource to build the process of social emotional learning and empowering kids through that process as much as we possibly can. And we want to spread that to other districts as well. Here's a picture of our fifth graders representing the different character superheroes. As you can see, just as diverse as our school is, so that when our younger kids see our older kids talking about social emotional learning and how you can attain your goals in a positive way. It's well received from kids to kids. Picture of our hallways to create that school culture. Head down Grid Avenue, make a left on Optimism Street. It's all part of the process. So more recently, we've worked hard to incorporate trauma-informed care into our training. There's levels to this process and trauma-informed care. And just a side note, if anybody didn't catch 60 Minutes on Sunday night, Oprah did a piece on trauma-informed care. And I recommend searching for that and seeing if you can find that piece that she did. It was well done. Incorporating mindfulness strategies and a growth mindset approach. Mindfulness, another term, a buzzword that's out there. My point for listing all these things is really working hard to bring all the components that are out there into one. And involving our families, not an easy task. So we got strategic with how we have invitations for our families to come in for breakfasts and coffee and conversations. We literally bring our families in to have a breakfast once a month, each grade level, excuse me. And then we train them on the social emotional learning strategies as the kids go to class. And then we allow our parents to go to the class to participate in one of the morning meetings. So they get to see and feel and experience the process right alongside with their kids. I mentioned 36 community partners. It's just outstanding to have that much support. But our PTA, again, who we empowered to reach out to our community partners, not just for finances, but also support in terms of volunteering and mentoring, has been a huge help for us at our school. Here's just a list of a few of those within our community. Gives them a chance to feel like they have a stake in our change process. And then also during this time is when we trained our 6 pilot teachers moving forward with the SEL standards to create CCPS standards for SEL within our district. As you can see here, in the past 2 decades, learning standards have become the driving and organizing force in education. So let's make some standards with SEL. And here you are with our goals. In terms of self-management, going back to our 5 competencies, the students will develop and demonstrate skills to regulate emotions, thoughts, and behaviors to achieve personal and academic goals. The key word there is regulate, teaching kids to regulate those emotions and feelings within inside themselves. And the morning meeting process is time for us to do that. But we also allow time for teachers just to stop and have a morning meeting during the day, an afternoon meeting where it takes 2-3 minutes to talk through a problem as a team, and closing meetings at the end of the day. We're building that into our schedule for the last 5 minutes to bring a nice sense of closure. Self-awareness, the student will develop the ability to recognize one's own feelings and emotions and interests. You know, it's again that recognizing to then to regulate. It's just the idea of awareness in general. Same thing goes for social awareness. Students having the awareness of their own thoughts and feelings. That just really helps to lay the groundwork for developing those positive relationships and the awareness of the cultural diversity. As someone mentioned in our chat room, they talk about in their own morning meetings with their kids that visual. I think that's so important. We tend to shy away from just mentioning words like cultural or diversity in our worlds. And the more we can just let that be an open point of conversation, the better our kids will feel comfortable with it moving forward with issues that we can't turn on the TV and see every day, that we listen to a lot, but we really need to talk about more. And then the students will develop and demonstrate relationships, interpersonal skills needed to establish and maintain their positive relationships. That's really what self-control is all about, and developing that skill set to manage yourself and interaction with others is something that adults can benefit from as well. And actually, a side note, we've seen that transformation within our own adults and staff members at our school. Ecoff has just become an even warmer and caring place where people are getting along and working together more openly. Not always easy to do with so much going on in our lives, but we've set that expectation through our training process. And then ultimately that responsible decision-making, the students will develop and demonstrate decision-making skills in school, personally and within community situations, trying to go beyond just what we're doing within Ecoff Elementary. So a few points about our Caring School community process. The staff training, we just didn't train our teachers. We trained our bus drivers, our custodial staff, our office staff, everyone that comes in contact with our kids has become aware of this approach with SEL and character ed. We have a set of 9-week lessons that we focus on, but they're ongoing, anytime lessons. We focus on working with cross-age buddies where 5th graders will match up with 3rd graders, 4th graders with 2nd graders, and 3rd with kindergarten, just so our kids are developing cross-age relationships within our own school. It strengthens that bond as kids walk in the hallway or have PE or lunch together in the cafeteria, all sorts of opportunities for kids to support kids. And then home side activities, giving opportunities for parents at home to be involved with the learning, to share that back with the teachers in terms of what is being discussed at home and also at school. More recently here with the Ecoff journey, I want to let you know that when every school has an opportunity to do something new, the first reaction is often, this is too much, oh, it's something new, it's something that can be negative. Well, we got creative. We took PBIS and merged it with SEL to create PBISSL. All the famous rappers and movie stars changed their name for popularity and for catchy reasons, so we did the same thing. And if you're laughing too right now, that's good. It breaks the ice with your staff. It broke the ice with ours. We merged our efforts, and we're trying to do the same thing with growth mindset and trauma-informed care and everything to show that it's all part of one process to build that equity amongst our kids in our community. We developed we developed staff norms, class expectations, discussion stems. So we had a format, very specific, during morning meetings and during PLC meetings with our staff and students. And even when parents came in for conversations, I mentioned training the entire staff. We've conducted data tracking with DESSA metrics. DESSA is the Devereaux Assessment for Student Strengths. I have some data to share with you later about that. We were very specific in educating our families during back to school nights, which is a common practice, but we opened up the door for back to school mornings so that our families who are busy or single parent could come before school and or after school to meet with our teachers to get the resources they needed and supports to help kick their school year off on a positive note. We created our own ABC, D, and E's of Ecoff booklet. You can find that on our website. It's just a way of branding our school. I mentioned that earlier with social media, but resources such as your own booklet to showcase the work you do, and so everybody understands that your school is what it is. And we've been successful in that. We're creating that character curriculum, student goal sheets I mentioned with the Character Club, student journals for them to keep track of their goals, strategy posters throughout the school to remind them in the hallways, student incentives connected to social emotional learning. Oftentimes it needs to be intrinsic, and we work hard at that all the time. Our SEL council I mentioned. I'm starting to lose my voice here. And school-wide recognition opportunities. Excuse me. Oh, here is an instructional model that we are working on now. Excuse me about my voice. I'll let you take a look at this just for a second. As you can see, we're really working hard to take all our SEL initiatives, excuse me, and merge them with PBL, project-based learning. So we're meeting the needs of the kids on a well-rounded spectrum. You can see here by these 5 bullets, there are so many pieces that go into the puzzle. But our efforts to bring that full circle for academic purposes, we're meeting the mark. Personalized learning, a new approach that's been a buzzword in the realm of educational ease. As you can see here, we have some specific things. We've been very targeted with our personalized learning for our kids, for them to be owners of their own learning in the process. It's just another, really a smart way for kids to take a step back and examine their learning through a social emotional learning lens, and for teachers to take a step back and to watch the kids be more empowered. In fact, here's a visual of everything that we are doing within our school stemming from social emotional learning. There's so many components, but if you can bring it back to SEL, that's where the change really happens. Teacher created process, student learns the process, student creates the process. a fluid process that we are working hard to develop through data, to develop a structure for learning, systems and resources to guide the learning, and then the frameworks and resources to support the learning. The final point I'm going to mention, if you can see on the very bottom right, Agile Scrum model. If you haven't learned much about the Agile Scrum process, it's a great way for adults to work through problems in solving issues in half the time. It's a book that has been out. We're using it as a model, and we're helping our kids learn the process to accomplish twice the work in half the time. All these steps are really in the framework of empowering our kids. And this visual here, I think, is the best for that. Excuse me. The gradual release of responsibility. We want our kids to be the ones who are doing the work, and we sit back and watch. We're almost like the facilitators in a classroom. We need to be, and that's what we're doing at Ecoff. And the kids are taking control of their own learning. And I want to show you some results. That 64% pass rate we had a few years ago, last year we're at 84% of our students reading on grade level, and I'm expecting us to be in the 90s this year. Our SOL approach, our SOL success with our state testing, again, math and reading have been up in the 80s from the 60s, despite the change in our demographics. And this is the point that we're most proud of, the suspension changes. 58 suspensions 3 years ago. Last year, we only had 16. Of those 39 from 3 years ago, of those 58, 39 were of students of color, just 8 the past year. More reflective of our student demographic, not to mention our students with disabilities going all the way down to only 2. And that's a testament to our teachers, our students, our families, and everybody working together through this SEL process to create the equitable results that you see right here. The DESSA data that I mentioned from the Devereaux assessment, we are seeing a significant increase observed by the SEL competencies over the past year from the pre and post data. Teachers rate their students' progress at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, and it's been extremely significant based on these numbers here. I have qualitative results too from principals, parents, community members, just talking about the differences they see in the behaviors of our Ecoff kids. And that's a point of pride as a principal for those anecdotal statements to come my way. And so I had to include them in this presentation because it's more than just the numbers. It's the feelings you get in the responses you get from parents and folks within the school community. Next steps, I want to make sure everybody's aware that we are not just stopping with our school. We've budgeted in our district for 7 new schools to pilot the program moving forward. We're incorporating SEL PD to support our district equity efforts, hired an SEL specialist for our district, plan to have all 38 elementary schools trained in the next 5 years, and also working toward the secondary development of the standards so we can continue this process beyond elementary school and into our students' lives. A final picture here of equality versus equity. I added one last slide where we actually take away that fence. And I believe in my heart as we move forward in our educational system by embracing SEL and working toward equity, that we can take down those barriers, and these supports necessarily won't be as needed, and we'll value those for who they are and what they bring to the table in all their circumstances as positives, as someone mentioned earlier in the chat room. So if there's any comments on this visual or questions based on the presentation, I think we're at the point to take some of those, right, Mary?
Right. So Joshua, we've had some comments from folks. They love the idea of the SEL group you have at 5th grade with your SEL council, and how impressive that is, and some notes about the reduction in suspension is pretty impressive. Wondering about time, because you mentioned, time is the enemy we all try to struggle with, where we never seem to have enough, and yet you have time for morning meetings. You say you're going to add time for closing meetings. What are some things you've done to make time within your schedule for teachers to have these conversations?
Well, besides just being intentional with your master schedule, and that's it, just even in the moments when it seems like we don't have time to do it, it's worth it. It pays off in the long run. We've also, as an administration, been intentional with having we bring all of our grade levels together before their resource special time each quarter. So when there's a 45-minute planning block that teachers never have enough time because they have to do several things, we meet with the kids 45 minutes before and or after that block. So we give our teachers a full hour and a half for them to talk and plan and work through situations. And it gives the kids a chance to see from administration and hear what the expectations are. We've also just been very strategic when I go in to teach classes or bring kids to me, that's more time for teachers to use on their own for their own planning purposes. It's just taking that extra effort in the best way that you can in a team approach.
We have a great comment here from DM Jones, who says he loves this graphic, this last one, the one that's on the screen now, and said, would love to see this image with students having a ticket, a seat, and a hot dog to be part of the game or sitting in the crowd, which is very true. Question here about Caring School Community. Is that a program? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. We've worked with the Collaborative Classroom to have trainers come in and work with us on the kit that is called for Caring School Community. And so, yes, we've used that as a baseline for our work in terms of some of the lessons that come with the Caring School Community. But again, we've also developed our own through the Character Club, and then just creativity and innovation amongst our own teaching staff. But the Caring School Community is part of the Collaborative Classroom that we've worked with.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll give everyone just 1 minute for some final questions.
If I could say one more thing, Mary.
Sure, please do.
I'm a big believer in people, and programs are important, but if you have the right people on your team, whether it's in a school or whatever organization you're working with, they make all the world a difference, and empowering those people is what's key.
Hiring makes a big difference, doesn't it? Getting the right people there, and it sounds like you've made an effort to do that. Patty makes a comment here about your training of all staff and how bus drivers are often the first person that a child encounters on their way to school, how important that is, and the work with paraprofessionals and so forth. How did you do that? How did you get all those people in to be trained?
Well, I took the time to reach out to their supervisors and to let them know that we wanted to do this. And, oftentimes I think for me personally, my grandma was a bus driver, my mom was a secretary, my uncle was a custodian. And I've learned through the years that oftentimes those folks get unnoticed and unappreciated. So just by reaching out and taking the time to invite them, and the fact of feeling included alone creates the interest and the a desire to learn more and be a part of the team. And so building relationships, that is key. As the leader, you have to model that. And as much as I can build relationships and show my staff that that's what is most important, then they will do that with their kids and families. That's the process we've went about it. And in terms of the actual training, empowering teachers on our staff to be able to do the training for our custodians or cafeteria workers, and being strategic with their schedules and bringing in, it's just a lot of work, and looking at schedules and putting the puzzle together. But because it has been a priority, we've got it done.
We have another question here, wondering how you get parents to join with you, especially sometimes the parents that you most need to meet with are the most reluctant to come to school for any kind of participation. What are some things you've tried that work?
Yeah. So those parents who it's hard to get a hold of, there's always a correlation with the kids who need the most attention. So one, I have to find a way to get a hold of them. Oftentimes the phone numbers always don't match up to who you're trying to call. So you have to call extended relatives, find a way to get a hold of those folks. And we've even gone to them to have conversations, like I say, going out to the community, meeting folks at their houses, apartments, in the community centers. We've had events, SEL night at one of our local apartment complexes, where we just had everybody come out just around the corner from where they live to their community resource center, literally where they live. So meeting them where they're at, and then giving them a sense of comfort, because oftentimes folks had experiences in their past, adults, parents of today's age, from their educational experiences, that they don't have a good feeling about school, or principals for that matter. So you need to change the perception and be very intentional with that in your efforts. And that's something we've been doing for several years now at our school, to bring people, to make them feel comfortable coming in. And then the empowerment zone, showcasing that as much as we can as a safe place, has helped people have a sense of comfort of coming in and learning more about what we do.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a note here from someone who says that they have community outreach specialists who partner with their SEL team, and that has been helpful to form kind of those partnerships and relationships. So thanks for that.
Sounds excellent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. Thank you, Frank. It is all about relationships, isn't it? It is relationships with our students, with the staff, with the parents, with the community beyond, and it looks like ECOFF has gone above and beyond to create those powerful relationships.
Well, we've worked hard at it, and I thank you again for the opportunity to share what we've done. I really believe it's a team effort, and the more we can learn and support each other across our country with our ideas and innovation, the better off we all are going to be.
Well, we sure appreciate it, Joshua. I don't know how many of have you had an opportunity, probably none of you, to read the newspaper this morning, but I did. And there was a piece in the New York Times from David Brooks that was called "Good Leaders Make Good Schools." And in that, he said that the best schools are those that work collaboratively. And I think ECOFF and Joshua, you have represented that to us today. So we thank you for your insights and experiences that you've offered for us on this webinar. We thank all of our participants. If you could press through to the next slide there for me, thank you.
Yes.
We just want to remind you that you can reach Kaylani Dunsmore from the Literacy Organizational Capacity Initiative at her address here, and you can reach me through the Consortium for Educational Change. Here's my email address, and we have our websites both listed here. And in our next slide, we'll preview our coming attraction, because we want to have you save the date, May 10th, Thursday, May 10th, 2018. We're going to be having a presentation from Carla Tantillo-Filbert, and she'll be talking to us a little bit about integrating social emotional learning and mindfulness in your classroom. So another opportunity to learn about some strategies that you can use and hear more about what people are doing to make social emotional learning really become just the way we do school wherever we are. So thanks to all of you for participating today. A reminder, you can find the recording of this at cecweb.org, and look forward to seeing you again in May. And Joshua, thank you again for being with us today.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you all.